they're selling services, and it's to their advantage to sell services. So just one of those lenses you'd have to look at that through in terms of evaluating that advice and what your options are.
And in this industry, I assume, just like it is with professional service firms and others, when you issue an RFP, you issue that out to the known body of professionals, and then, so there may be 12 of them, we've got those names. We may get back 5 RFPs from them who would be willing, and then if it was, too many that we could individually interview or talk to each of them, we might do a paper cut and then meet with 3 of them or 2 of them or something like that. But that's my understanding, is that would be the traditional process. Is that?
Well, that's what you would typically do if you put an RFP out, is you would get proposals and you would review them. You would have criteria for accepting or rejecting the proposals. You might interview the consulting firms. There's still, I was just sort of commenting too on that. One of the major things you're trying to evaluate is the period of time you have until July 1st and the feasibility of conducting a search and hiring somebody, given all the things we've talked about. And so we've kind of given our cut on that, our experience with that. And the search firm, you have to think about how you ask the question, because one of the things you want to know is also the feasibility of getting an interim candidate. That's sort of a different question you're asking them, and to be aware of that is, a professional services firm wants the business, and they say, yeah, we can conduct the search, we can get you a pool of applicants, and not to say what that pool of applicants is going to look like in mid-March or the beginning of June, and whether it's somebody you actually want. And I think there are constraints around. I get what you say about you only need one, and that's absolutely true. The problem is the way the contracts run in Washington State, and obligations people have, and culture around being released from your contract, and all those sorts of things we've already talked about, that will define the quality of the pool for you. So those are a lot of things to think about.
Sure, and in terms of the interim, I don't know if we've explored this. I know we're trying to move towards making a motion. The interim pool, what's the sense of the timeline for that, especially if you're drawing from the retired market?
If you're looking at a retired internal market, it can be done quite
That's just as, right, so if, right, because, and I would assume that given how headhunters and other people are, that someone will start receiving resumes or inquiries of, because there's someone out there who's in this industry and they would love to, we'd be their plum job. And so I don't know who they would contact. And typically they would go through our search firm, I would think, or their representative would.
It would be fairly typical for a person who was interested in making themselves available for interim assignments that they would probably make that known to the various search firms.
Right.
So that they would be sort of on record or in the Rolodex,
right.
So to speak, for their interest in that type of a position should one become available. Something to think about with that is that oftentimes there are 295 school districts in the state. The vast majority of them are, 1,000 students, 2,000 students, or fewer. So that bears some consideration as well. That this is a 10th largest school district in the state. This is not Othello, or no offense to Othello or anybody like that, but Washington or whatever it may be. I'm going to get in trouble. Yeah, I mean, there is a complexity, both an organizational as well as a community complexity, that not just any potential interim candidate
clearly
well suited to.
Right. No, and I think Jeff's point about that someone will pitch us a bill of goods if we say we're willing to be pitched to. I mean, I've recently on the used car lot because my car broke down, so I'm well familiar with that. And that's one of the advantages of the RFP, is that you send that out to several people, and then we have the ability, with the advice that we have from other people that have been through it, to be able to separate the promises from the likely reality in terms of what people are saying. And being overly optimistic, I think we realize, I'm getting a clear sense of where it seems like we're at in the process. for the likelihood of various search options, so.
Well, I don't think the bigger districts that use these search firms, they probably aren't a wide, it's probably more of a narrow variety, like we know there's the Northwest, what's it called, Northwest? Leadership. And there's probably a handful of others. You're gonna know pretty quickly whether this is reputable. It's just like going out and anything that you do in your job or community, you have to make sure it's a reputable place, but they probably won't stay in business too long, so.
I would say there's reputable, there's also some different levels of expertise. So there's one of the firms, and I don't have the sheet in front of me that I know, is very specialized to, in the people who, I know the people who are the primaries in the firm, and they are very specialized to small Eastern Washington school districts. So that's kind of their niche.
Yeah.
Right.
So they would really, they really, to my way of thinking, wouldn't be an appropriate, this would be out of their normal range of business.
The other, and someone else had brought this to my attention, I forgot, the notion of an executive search firm looking for an executive that's not in a superintendent or has been a superintendent before, but is an executive. I guess Seattle schools at one point in time had John Stanford, I guess, was the name that someone had proposed. And so I don't know that history, but that notion, and that's a different candidate pool if you're looking just executive, not an education executive. And there's a host of concerns that you can have with that, but it's also an opportunity. And then the various search firms can, and then we as a board have to say, are we interested in someone who does not have superintendent experience but has executive experience? Is that something that we as a board would be comfortable with, or we would not be comfortable with? And that's one of those questions that we would have to wrestle with at some level in the process.
And it would seem to me, if we're gonna talk at that level of detail, I don't know if we could find someone by July 1st. To me, that sounds like a long discussion, and I'm certainly happy to have it. I just, in terms of finding someone then to fill it, having a discussion of business executive versus superintendent experience, and then going forward and finding the proper search firm to find the person, I just,
Well, and I would say that if you're looking for one person, but that market is fluid. There may be a great Microsoft or Boeing or Amazon or Costco or any executive that just decided, oh, I've been this great executive, now I'd like to apply my trade in school district. So that kind of thing could be more fluid. But again, well, the stock of capital that you're helping great people. No, you can joke about it, but there are huge rewards and benefits from the industry in which we work, and so for executive leadership. I think part of the
university.
Exactly. But I agree with your point that our decision making and comfort level, that might take some time. But from that candidate pool, I'm not sure that it would take. I think it could go faster, but not again. That is kind of a detail but in the RFP, we'd have to almost say, are we interested in looking for primarily, experience required or experience preferred? And that's one of those kinds of questions that goes through, I think, after you would search, or as you would be talking to the search firms.
You may also want to think about you talked a little bit about community engagement, the staff engagement piece on questions like that is pretty critical as well. And we are going to be bargaining the Teacher Association contract this spring, and the staff are going to be having a high interest in who the leader is. So it's just another piece you want to make sure you're thinking about.
When I think of community, I think of, when I'm thinking of community, I'm thinking of teachers, staff, community, like I'm thinking of the whole community. Just to let you know, when I say community, I do mean personally, I think of everyone in that group. I don't know if you do that.
I do too.
Different constituencies.
But from a shared language, it's important. So
Yeah,
when we say
important to
community,
clarify.
we mean everyone.
Everyone,
The
yeah.
direct employees, the taxpayers who don't have kids in the district, families, graduates, alumni who are far away. They're part of our community and they care about what happens in the district. So it's a very broad
No,
process.
it's good to
But
clarify.
it's clarified that
Yeah.
when we say community, we mean, and then that community engagement, because these are people, and typically these things, the staff who are going to be working under that leadership absolutely want
Yeah.
to have clarity, involvement, participate in the site visits, et cetera, to the appropriate level, absolutely.
And
So,
I would just suggest that they would make a distinction between, say, the parent community or the general taxpayer community and their input, just, you know, I understand what you're talking about, but
no, I think it's great clarification, yeah.
So,
I just wanted to clarify that I don't think teachers or staff should absolutely be part of the process. So when I mean community, yeah, I'm just including them as part of the broader conversation.
so far, and, you know, the clarity about business experience or scholastic experience, I'll call it for lack of a better term. So, in terms of, I've kind of heard a motion to ask for an RFP from several firms to find a superintendent by July 1st, asking the search firms to present options for what an interim search process would look like, as well as options for a long-term superintendent process would look like. Do I have the motion summarized correctly? Do we want to add the detail about adding in the business versus scholastic or not?
I don't know, I would look to other people's RFPs, I think, and in some sense, I don't know if we should get a subcommittee of, you know, maybe 2 board members and some other people, but to draft this and to get the RFP done so that it goes out. And so I don't know, is it normally a formal legal document, and who do they email it to? When do we open them up, start working through them?
So there are a couple of samples that WASDA has provided in their superintendent search handbook. One's a sort of a short form and one's a longer form. I don't think they're a legal document, I think they're just a request for proposal.
Okay.
And they would be returned to likely the board president, you know, in care of the school district, and then given a time period of which to respond.
And you would send those out to us, they'd be distributed to all the board members?
Oh, yeah.
Just clarify.
Well, is that,
Well, yeah, I would think it's the responsibility of the whole board to evaluate which firm to go with. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, no, I'm just talking about the distribution of, the creation and distribution of an
Yeah.
RFP and who the responses would
Yeah.
come back to.
How long does it usually take to get those back? So,
I would say in general, you know, knowing that this is sort of the middle of the season, so people who are doing searches are probably now also at the same point now facilitating interview and selection processes, many of them that you would probably want to give at least 2 weeks for individuals, you know, firms to respond.
and how many firms are we talking about wanting to submit
That would be the next question.
this to? Yeah.
How many and who?
Can we take action on this?
Yes.
This is a special meeting.
Oh,
we
okay.
can, yeah.
Okay.
So we could,
okay, so I'm sorry. just
did you
the-
pull up the?
I'm pulling up the, it's, shame we don't have a, so I've got this appendix 1A.
41 and 42.
Yes, thank you, okay. Do you guys have, David, you can just, Sandy, do you have a copy? Okay. Okay, so the school district.
So, yeah, I looked at some of these too, Larry. I think it was this principled leadership that looks like they're based out of Spokane. They're the ones, that specialize in smaller districts. I know, right? I know.
I just need to see some of the names.
This one here, Bill Jordan.
No. It's
Educational
Consultants,
consultants.
LLC.
Okay, those are the ones that specialize.
I'm not aware that Dick Smith has done any searches that I've been aware of.
Where are you getting this list from?
This is available from WASA and
Okay.
WASDA.
So, so this is
Oh, so one- and then
WASDA's
one of these-
recommendation of who to use?
They're not recommendations, they're just merely
Known vendors?
lists of known vendors, yes.
And which one are the national search firms on?
So McPherson, here, I think it's on the second
There's
page.
Ray and
Here we go.
Associates.
Oh, I
So
see.
McPherson and
Okay.
Jacobson, that's the one that Tricia mentioned.
Yeah, so they are separating them from regional versus national, yeah.
I would say some of the national firms, to my understanding, they may be national in scope, but they will still have generally somebody who's in this region,
That-
who's a subcontractor
Did you
with
talk
them,
to?
who essentially does the work at the local level.
Okay.
Okay. So that, yeah, so that these, basically, they're more simple than I guess I would, but this is a form letter that I assume many districts use and many consultants are used to responding to, so they probably have a boilerplate format that they're used to responding to these.
So-
Right, Northwest Associates fills out, responds with RFPs, probably 38 years, something like that. So, yeah.
I would presume they would, any one of these or any slight variation of either one of these would be done for the record.
Did the people that you talked to, did they have any recommendations from search firms that they used that they were happy with? Or that?
We didn't get to that level, and I think I think that would be the kind of thing that we should use after we get them back.
Okay.
And or if we talk to someone and we hear says, oh man, we used ABC Consulting, they were awesome, then that would be an appropriate time for one of us to communicate, for someone to communicate with ABC, hey, please submit an RFP, you got a good positive reaction from someone else.
There's a national search firm that I think 2 people have given me the name of that probably is recommended by WASDA. I think it was, but I can't remember it right at this moment, so I have to go back and check my notes. So I can email that to you.
But this is, oh, just
interrupt, because I have a hard stop time at 3 o'clock. I'm already late by leaving here at 3. So I don't have a preference of how many, but I will tell you this conversation has not, and I didn't expect it to, but it has not relieved my fears of being able to have robust community involvement and get a superintendent by July 1st. So for me, that would be part of the RFQ of either a very clear timeline of the community involvement that would be robust. I don't want, there's one appendix 1A where it looks like you could determine how much. I want full on, everybody's involved and they're part of this process because it is all of our leader.
Community and
And-
stuff. Community and stuff.
Even
Yeah.
if that's,
No, you
Even
mean
for
whole
an
community.
everybody.
No,
Right,
for
right,
a,
all.
for a
long
long
term.
term, for a long term, for an interim, obviously that's a little bit, I have no fears that we can get somebody by July 1st as an interim, but I'm very concerned about being able to do that. And I would feel much better if they could provide an example of a situation where they have been in, where they have done this in this type of compressed timeline.
I think that's a great addendum to these boilerplates.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah, I think it
That's
was.
the question I say, ask these 3
But I think
questions.
asking for it in the RFP, and then if the search firm hasn't done that, and that even kind of goes to Jeff's point of, you're telling me you can do this, you know, it's experience living. Have you ever done this? No.
Right.
Okay.
Well, especially with this size
Definitely.
district.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's
I think,
definitely
yeah, that's
an
great.
important
And if they haven't,
question.
they haven't, and people who
Yeah.
respond to that will just say, we haven't done a search like this in this size district on that timeline.
Yeah, I think did you
That's
write
a
down the
great
3
clarification,
questions I had asked Amy?
Yeah,
Because I
have
think
you,
those
have
were,
you done a search this late? What's the quality of the pool and the time?
yeah, so that's essentially what I didn't really know how to phrase it in
Yeah,
a document, but that's the
Move
things
it
I would
forward.
add to make sure that we're getting the right information.
And then the other thing, just to kind of build on this, the people who are in this
Just don't know
industry
all these
have news clipping
terminology.
services and everything
This
else,
one's tricky.
they're already well aware that they've seen the announcement and they're looking forward to see an RFP coming from us. So it's, I don't think it's gonna be too hard for the people who we want to respond to this, knowing that we'll be looking for it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah,
So
we still wanna reach out to them, but they're expecting us.
So my process question is, I heard some desire to do an investigation of which search consultant firms to go with. I think we should set, did I hear, like you said you wanted you had heard about a national firm you
I
wanted to
did,
double
and
check
I
on?
like 2 different people that have gone through this tell me, I just can't remember, but I can get back with you very quickly on it.
But I think in some sense, I think that's irrelevant. If they don't respond to the RFP, they don't, I mean, and they can be, here's the RFP, if you're interested, respond to the
So
RFP.
you're suggesting sending it to the entire list?
Of course, why wouldn't we?
I don't have a problem with that, but.
It's
do we
it's
want
public
to-
business, everyone should be able to chime in.
So do we want to send the RFP to everyone and then choose who we'd want to interview?
Yes. I mean, that would be my thought, you send the RFP out to the whole
What is it?
industry, and then you do a vetting process.
I'm fine with that, I think
Yeah.
that's.
I'm sorry, that was.
So I'm watching Sandy's time, so is everyone okay with that
The
process?
thing I'd like to add is, I would be curious to know what would be the cost for the interim search, and what would be the cost for a superintendent.
That's what Ken was
search.
asking.
I think-
You know, but I think he's asking that as a
I'm
contract
asking
matter.
as an RFP, and the reason why is because if it's X amount of dollars for an interim search, I mean, you know, I know that we've got a lot going on in the district in the next year, and, you know, we've got folks internally that are involved with all these details, and, you know, there's some consistency and some availability, and that might be worth considering versus spending a lot of money to get a pool of people in a short term.
Okay. Okay, good point, I have that down. Okay, so just to confirm, so
Or did we make a motion on this?
I just wanna,
Okay.
let me see, make sure I got it right. So creating an RFP, sending it to the list,
Of both national and regional.
to the national and regional list. And then maybe, then picking, I guess we don't have to decide right now how many we want to interview, but then picking a subset to interview.
And are we going to meet to pick that
We should,
subset?
with
Oh,
Casey,
yes.
actually,
Okay.
she's.
Yes, oh, yeah, so we
she's one of
can,
these, and then
We could do that.
We could do
review
that
it.
in a regular meeting, or if that timing doesn't work out well, we can call another special meeting to do
Yeah.
that. And what I can do is, definitely before the RFP goes out, we'll send it to everyone, have everyone review, make sure I didn't lose any details.
Can you repeat what you were just saying? I was having
Okay, so,
Sidebar.
sidebar.
so we're gonna create an RFP, send it to both, the entire list,
National.
national and regional. We'll then decide as a board a subset to interview. You know, I'm, just because it's how I work, I would be interested in attaching some dates to everything.
Yes.
And so if we create, what's a reasonable amount of time, Jeff, do you think, to create an RFP?
You mean from
By
now
tomorrow.
until we do issue it?
Yeah,
No.
Well,
today's
Oh.
Tuesday, by Friday, and then Friday, do you think
I
we
think
could
you
have
can do
it?
it by Friday, I mean, if you're gonna,
No, I think there's two questions. The RFP that we would send out versus how much time we're
Oh,
getting
yeah,
to
yeah,
respond.
what we sent out, so getting it, so drafting it ourselves, getting the board to look at it, getting it ready to send out by Friday, is that reasonable?
I mean, I think if we're, if it's going to look a lot like the boilerplate with the add-ons that you've talked about,
We could do
it
tomorrow.
seems like a few days, but I would defer to Larry on, that seems reasonable.
I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be to probably go with the short form on this and enhance it with
Okay,
some of the elements that have been discussed.
is that,
I
okay,
think that could probably be,
And then,
I think the main, I could see that being drafted up this afternoon or tomorrow. I think the main thing was the board members going to provide feedback on it, just to do that in a timely manner.
right, so get feedback by the end of Friday?
can we do it faster? I mean, I mean,
Well,
no,
it-
yeah,
I think
I think we do it by
I
the
can
end
do
of
it faster,
tomorrow.
So
Yeah,
it's
by noon, I
not-
mean,
it's
because
not-
we all see what it
Cindy
is.
can give me just a quick call when it comes out, then I'll know to go jump.
Yeah,
Just saying, I know my limits here.
Yeah, no, that's fine,
I
okay.
think 1 or 2 days probably wouldn't make that much difference.
Okay, so
Make sure
Thursday?
Says what you want to say.
I think Friday should
Okay, so,
be, I don't think 2 days is gonna make any difference in the grand scheme
and
of all
then,
this.
I'm just pulling out
Well,
my.
yeah, and then I would say that if it doesn't, then let's do it the earlier day.
Well, 2 days here, 2 days there, 2 days there.
So
No,
that's
no
March.
more crisis mode, let's keep this in opportunity mode, let's
So
do this
March.
right.
I mean, if we get it done before, then
Then
we
we
can
get it
still
done.
send, yeah, we can still send it out, but I don't wanna go past Friday.
Okay, no later than Friday, I'm
Yes,
fine with that.
yes, okay, so that means, I mean, and then is a 2-week turnaround time appropriate to ask for a response?
About as short as you'd want it.
So, or would so that would give them, so say it goes out in the mail, so we don't have emails from a lot of these folks, although we could maybe try.
I just would say if they can't reply in 2 weeks, they're not gonna be able to help us on this one. It's short term.
That's March
They don't have the
18th.
capacity.
So, the 22nd is our board retreat,
22nd is our board retreat.
so if we said the 21st.
Okay, wait a second. So we're.
Yeah, because that's the
Well,
Monday after the
and another thing,
18th.
I think,
Yeah.
if you start getting them back earlier, Amy, and you have
Of course.
8 of them earlier, then, I mean, they're gonna be in your hands, so you could call
Yeah.
a special meeting and say, I've got them now, because,
But we want to give them the deadline. So
Correct,
what deadline
yeah.
do we want to tell
correct, I
them?
hear what you're saying.
So, the 21st?
Wait a second. So
That's
hold on.
like 3 weeks.
So that's, and so I'm just trying to track. So the 21st is a Monday,
Mm-hmm.
and then we meet on the 22nd.
Right.
Okay, so then if we do it on the 21st, then the plan is we would review them, and on the 22nd, we would make a choice on the ones that we want to interview or do follow-up with.
Yeah, and ideally someone will come in earlier, so we've had a chance.
Okay,
to-
Right.
and then so
Yeah.
we could just get up a file Dropbox or something like that, where all the proposals are in. Okay,
So then, yeah, so.
okay, so you're
start-
saying the proposal is the 21st is the deadline. Could we say make it noon
Why
on
don't
the
we say
21st?
Friday the 18th, because that's exactly 2 weeks, and then it gives us time to review them.
Well, the only reason I started out of it is mail.
Yep.
The US Postal Service doesn't always operate within our timeframe. And then if they put something in the mail on the 18th,
Yeah, so it has to be received by noon
Don't most,
on,
they don't do business via email?
how many emails do you see?
Or I mean, they must have, it's,
I would just say end of business on 3/21, which is flexible.
Okay.
And then with the planned action item to take action on Tuesday, the 22nd.
To decide who to interview.
Okay.
So it's sounding to me then that what had been your retreat on the 22nd is now going to instead be review of the RFPs to take action on the night of the 22nd, or are you going to want to identify 2 or 3 firms to invite in for interviews, which is not uncommon?
I
So
think
you can
that's what
actually
you
meet
say
them.
was.
So you
you
can
know,
actually-
Right, but I think
Meet
those
them.
interviews, that interview date should be in the RFP, and so it says we'll conduct, we'll invite interviews, say on Thursday the 24th, and so we'll notify you, whoever we want to interview, and,
That's a short time for travel.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
expecting-
for the
Right.
national firms.
Yeah.
you know, and that's just that point, if we want to keep adding extra, it's like the day here, day there.
I already
you
feel
know.
like now we've added a week to something
And,
that
and,
could
and
have
to Larry's
shortened
point,
by a week.
if the retreat business, goes on, there was many important things on that retreat business. If this is a separate project that we have, it's a separate project we have, and it shouldn't be in place of our other business.
Well, let's keep in
And
mind
that's-
too, Easter is the 27th. I don't know if people if it impacts the
Right.
board, but
And
Easter
that's
Well-
why I
just
was
to
looking
throw it
at
out.
the 22nd, because we're already here, we already know we're gonna be together. So if we don't do the 22nd, we're pushing farther beyond the 22nd for us meeting to pick who we're gonna interview. And then we're bumping into holidays, I mean, that's why it was already there on the calendar as a time.
No, I'm not, right, I'm
I
not
think the question
objecting
is
to it,
what day
I'm
to
willing to
have
go,
them come
uh-huh.
The question is, I think, what day to have them come in to interview, is that what we're trying to decide? It's not when we're going to discuss it, because honestly, I don't know if less than 2 weeks we would get any decent proposals, if we give them less than 2 weeks to prepare. So,
Okay,
or if they come in early, we can always, I am more than happy to schedule another meeting. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want
And that's
anyone,
what I'm
I don't
saying,
want
if they
anyone
come
to
in
question
early-
my dedication. I'm more than happy to come in early. So we can do that.
Do you think someone's, that you're being questioned?
So we can, so
So,
let's say for the 22nd,
so I think what might sound reasonable is if RFP responses were identified as they need to be in by the end of business on 3/21, you'll evaluate on 3/22 and determine finalists that you will invite for interviews on 3/29. Keeps everything on a Tuesday, but we also have a sit visit that morning, but perhaps something in this, so finalist firms would be invited in for interviews with the board on 3/29. I would see that process being, they're given essentially 20 minutes to make their pitch, 15 minutes and then 5 minutes for questions and answers, and then they're dismissed and then you make your call.
And is that traditionally an open public meeting?
That would have to be an open public meeting, yes.
And the deliberation would also have to be an open public meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
And then that would officially start the process, so you would be at least ahead of April 1st, but I do think that if you're not going to determine who you want to learn more about until the 22nd, you need to give at least a week for people to be able to show up for an interview, or at least make arrangements if they're a national firm and not able to be here for some kind of teleconference or something where you can
That's true,
speak with
we could do a
people.
teleconference.
So am I wrong? Could we ask for responses back before the 22nd? Is it reasonable if we're asking, because the thing that made me concerned is that we're asking both for the interim and the long-term option. So that's why I was thinking it was a complex proposal. But if I'm wrong, we could do it earlier.
I get nervous anytime we're rushing people. I want this to be quality. I want this to be well done.
Do you
I
know
want it
what their
to be done.
timelines usually are?
I can't imagine a request for proposal is less than a week.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't think so either.
But 2 weeks, yeah, I mean, I think, but again, I think
I wouldn't
they're
think less
on,
than
they
a
do this all the time, having been the person that pitched, jobs in my
Right.
industry.
And
And so-
I don't disagree, but I'm just, they're also, they have other things to do. They're not.
Well, and the other
That's
thing,
their
I mean, in
job.
terms of quality, I mean, the
Well,
best
they've got
firms,
other districts they're doing this.
That's the
right, but the best firms move fastest. That's,
Right,
that
but
is lots of research.
we-
So if you give it 2 weeks, and the people who can't hit the 2 week deadline are actually the firms you don't want.
Right. And that's fine, 2 weeks seems reasonable. I just I get nervous to
Okay.
shrink it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want you to get beyond 2 weeks. I think it's
Thank you.
that's
My-
an
my
idea of
only
that, but I would like to
caveat-
shrink it to
My only
2
caveat
weeks.
was if she happened to get 7 proposals early,
I think any
Then
proposal
why-
that comes in,
I know,
yeah.
I think we
has-
should.
Yeah. But a lot of
For
people,
sure, for
even in
sure.
that, if the deadline is the 17th, that's when it's gonna go in. Just because they're adjusting time, they've got lots of other business. So I don't know that you're gonna get the time ahead of time you might. That's generally a positive signal that they really want your business. Yeah. So we're saying then we'll get it out by Thursday, or no later than Friday.
No later than Friday.
And then have it do 2 weeks after that. So that'll be the Thursday or the Friday, depending on what day it goes out.
So,
Okay, so that's what we'll say. We'll say 2 weeks after it goes out, instead of having the hard 21st, in case we are able to get it out earlier.
well, I think you should have a hard deadline. So what I have is
Yeah,
by
but
3/4, the RFP issued. By 3/21, RFPs are due. 3/22, the RFPs will be evaluated and finalists will be selected. 3/29, finalists will be interviewed and a contract will be awarded, and then 3/30, the process would begin.
I think someone was trying to move it forward to where we got them actually on the 17th or 18th. And then we could get our open group. That's why I heard that conversation boiling up, but maybe I
I
was
think that's too short. I think 2 weeks is reasonable, and then it's only an extra weekend.
Yeah.
to go to-
But the weekend and Monday.
So, and then I think the other thing, Larry, your timeline is that we will inform the finalists or inform everybody of the decision maybe by the 23rd, right, from its 7th to 22nd.
Okay, that's true. Let's add that in on,
Let them
okay.
know that we're moving quickly.
Oh, the finalists will be notified on the 23rd. I think it's a good addendum.
Okay, finalist. Okay, interviews on 3/29,
Mhm.
and finalists chosen by 3:30.
So I think it's 3:10, just,
I am.
you said you had to go at 3.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I need to go, so should we
Is-
take a vote now? Do we have a?
Do you want me to sum it up? Would that be helpful? Or does everyone, so we have using the short form RFP with addendums with our requests, which we will summarize and get out to the board before it's done, just to make sure we copied it correctly. And then also I will summarize the schedule and get it out to everyone as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Should we
Yeah,
take
do we
formal
need to-
action?
Yeah, do we need to, that's what I'm
Sure,
asking.
okay. Would anyone like to
I
make a
don't know.
motion that we're following this plan?
I make the motion that we follow the plan just stated.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, it passes. We have a plan. Thank you, everyone.
Who moved, Ken?
Ken.
And
Who
David
seconded?
seconded.
Thank you.
And it was unanimous.
And it was unanimous.
That's everything we do. Are we adjourned?
I don't know,
We are
Snow-
adjourned.
Snow-
We are
Snow-